history and emergence of film noir in America and its representation of the American culture. Film noir emerged during the Second World War, where many refugees fled from Germany, bringing German expressionism to America, which included special qualities of cinematography like bright direct light, shadows, and camera angles. Scholars have regarded the 1940s to 1950s as a classic period of film noir. In order to understand how the American culture was portrayed in the post-war era, it is necessary to look at films before the war. Stranger on the Third Floor, produced in 1940, was released right before America had entered the Second World War. Many film critics have claimed this as the first true film noir of the classic period. Mildred Pierce was released the same year America exited World War II. Both movies demonstrate typical film noir characteristics. Both movies take place in an urban setting and features a voice-over narration.
A lot of people live in Brooklyn. Why couldn't I?
There are flashbacks, low camera angles, heavy shadows, frequent diagonal lines, and some sort of crime involved. Firstly, we will look at how women's roles are portrayed differently in film noir during the two periods. Prior to the war, most women worked as housewives, although some women worked as secretaries, receptionists, and clerks. As America entered World War II, women were forced to go out and work due to the lack of men in the society. The demand for female labor in the US grew, spurring social change, with popular culture portraying women in a new and different way that highlighted female liberation and independence. However, when the war ended, women were expected to go back to domestic duties. The emergence of film noir coincides with the rise and fall of women's employment through the war. The females in film noir represented are either of two archetypes: the reliable, trustworthy, and loving women, or femme fatales who are gorgeous, unloving, manipulative, and desperate women. In Stranger on the Third Floor, Mike Ward's girlfriend Jane, who was only working as an office clerk, representing the minority of women who worked during this period. She was represented as a reliable, trustworthy, and loving woman and the perfect wife in this film. Her loving role is further demonstrated when her fiancé is under suspicion of committing murder and she takes matters into her own hands to find the real killer, showing her supportive, reliable nature as a woman. This is also rare in film noir, as it can be seen as Jane is taking on a masculine detective role that is mainly played by men in film noir. In Mildred Pierce, Mildred is seen doing domestic work and taking care of her family, but as she tries to make money off her skills in baking, the audience sees extremely unsettling domestic space and broken social order.
I'm determined to do the best I can for them. If I can't do it with you, I'll do it without you.
Oh, so now we're getting down to the point. You're looking for an excuse to heave me out in my ears, is that it?
Mildred triggers the default narrative, which is traditional patriarchy. It also addresses the anxiety and the concern the gender roles play through the post-war concerns. Women's roles in film noir during this period were a representation of the reoppressed females in post-war America, where women were supposed to return to their domestic duties. Unlike Jane in Stranger on the Third Floor, Mildred is shown as a femme fatale, where her unloving character comes to play as she manipulates Monty to marry her to get what she wants. The second aspect of the American culture we will be looking at is the American dream. The aspect of the American dream is not obvious in the movie Stranger on the Third Floor. The movie's protagonist, Mike Ward, does not seem to have an American dream or want to do better for himself. However, his success only comes to him after he becomes a witness to a murder. His character does not go actively looking for success, and hence the aspect of American dream does not seem to exist in this film. This is because America was just recovering from the Great Depression, where consumer spending and investment had dropped along with the employment during this unfortunate time. As Mildred Pierce was released after the war had ended, the audience sees more aspects of American dream in this film. During this period, the American people had one thing in mind, which was success. With the economy being stronger than ever, people finally had hope of becoming successful. Mildred, who was the protagonist of the movie, had an ambition of opening her own restaurant chain, her American dream, and it is like any other protagonist's dream where it is driven by money and status goals. However, the protagonist is usually met with moral challenges on their way to finding success. Although Mildred did not commit the murder herself, the audience is given the idea that she was thinking about it towards the end as her business was failing. This is common in most film noirs, where the protagonist is usually met with moral challenges on their way to finding success. In conclusion, film noir deals with subjects closely related to the American culture during the post-war era. People during this period were trying to make something out of themselves and achieve success. In film noir, the protagonists act as masters of their life in order to achieve success, but are always doomed powerless due to being controlled by the socio-economic system of America. Households are always shown to be unhappy, being a metaphor for the larger society as it represents the social discontent of America during this period. Finally, the way women are portrayed in this era shows how women were a threat to the men as they oppose the traditional patriarchal structure.